Good, you're thinking.
Call this meeting to order. Please stand for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mrs. McCausland, can you please take roll?
Mrs. Feiss. Mr. Grisbeck.
Here.
Mrs. Janasik. She is on the web.
Here.
Okay.
Sorry.
Mrs. Hoppy.
Here.
Mr. McGregor.
Here.
Mr. Modrak.
Here.
Mr. Scalzo.
Here.
Mrs. Turner.
Here.
Mr. Christensen.
Here.
8 members present.
Thank you. First part of this agenda, we're going to get a few updates, and we're actually going to go a little bit out of order from what's on the agenda. So the first one, Hayes Group, can you give us an update first? This is on the bus garage project. Any updates you have on the Phase 2 IMS?
Certainly. So we'll start with the bus garage. My name is Andrew Campanero. I'm with the Hayes Design Group. Next to me is Aaron Lavage with CEC. And I'm actually going to turn it over to Aaron, and he's going to give us an update on how the construction is going. Aaron is the engineer who designed the project.
Hi, everyone. My name is Aaron Lavage with Civil and Environmental Consultants, like Andrew said, project manager in charge for Civil and Environmental Consultants. A little bit of a status update for the bus garage right now. The main happenings of this past week is, I believe you're all aware that there's a large underground detention system for stormwater collection that is in the process of being installed now. The excavation is pretty substantial. There's 2 pipes in there that are 8 feet in diameter, so it's pretty impressive if you're out there on site to see the size of the pipes and the size of the excavation. Things are going well, and they should be wrapped up with the stormwater installation, at least the larger pipes, next week, most likely. Another key item that's occurring right now is in between the 2 buildings at the site, the concrete pad that's essential for the bus inspections that I understand will be happening at the beginning of October. That is being poured this week, and I believe there's 1 or 2 more pours to complete. So that's in good shape to be completed by October 1st, I believe is the date when it needs to be open. As that's all going on, I believe Zeb informed you guys that there is a management of historic fill on site, and that's something that has, been identified recently. A status update on that is, since that historic fill was encountered, Andrew and Hayes have done a nice job bringing the team together, the team being CEC, the engineer, also Foligno, the contractor, to come up with solutions on how to manage the material on site. One of the things that has been done so far is for the excavation of the underground detention system. Foligno excavated maybe 4 or 5 feet down further below the stormwater feature. They were able to lose a fair amount of fill material, historic fill material, in that area instead of having to haul it off site. There's other modifications as well, as there will be some changes to grade right now. If you can imagine the site sort of V's in an area, the final condition it will be more crowned. It'll still be completely functional for the buses. Right now, Foligno is in the process of doing a drone flyover to understand how much historic fill material is on site and needs to be managed, but we've made great strides at really reducing any leftover material that'll be on site. So that's a status update of what's gone on over the past week or 2.
So what feature of that makes it a historic fill? Is it contaminated with oil, diesel, something like that, or what makes it a problem to deal with?
The problem is there was a recent change to code. The clean fill policy was updated last January of 2021, and it indicated in that policy update that any fill placed on site, any site prior to 1988 that contains residual soils and construction debris, similar to the materials you have on site, even if it's not contaminated at all, it needs to be treated as a historical fill. And so that's the situation that we've encountered on site.
Okay.
How far down does that go?
It ranges on the southern portion of the site. If you look, the south is down on the screen that you're looking at. It's thicker there. It gets up to about 8 feet thick at the southern portion of the site, and on the northern portion of the site, there's only a foot or two of material.
Thank you.
And as far as moving forward, like I said, the end of this week, we'll be completing the slab in between the two buildings. Next week, they'll be making efforts to form and pour the slab around the fuel tank, and then it'll be an ongoing process of installing the remainder of the stormwater features and grading the site, electrical updates, and eventually paving the site. Here, Andrew has a few photos up. The photos from, the larger photo is from in between the two buildings. You can see that it's in the process of being poured in this photo. They have another section or two left. And then there's a general photo on the east side of the site just to show, you know, the general condition of the site. I think you have a couple more photos. Still, you know, seeing the photos of it doesn't exactly do it justice. The excavation is extremely large. And you can see there's part of that corrugated metal pipe there in the lower left-hand side of the larger photo that's currently being installed for the stormwater collection.
8-foot diameter, so just you're walking it.
It's large, and there's two of them going in, yeah.
What dictated the size of that piping? Is it the runoff capacity, or is this not tied into the stormwater system that goes down to the retention pond?
So the need for the stormwater is based on Bethel Park stormwater ordinance for, you know, the majority of municipalities. If you go and you remediate your parking lot, there's no requirement to retrofit your site to meet current stormwater ordinances. However, given the, you know, erosional and stormwater-related issues that have developed over the years by paving a lot of the municipality, has resulted in an ordinance which, if you're going to repave your site, you need to retrofit it to the current stormwater ordinance.
Yeah,
Any other questions?
Still on schedule, though.
Yeah, as far as I know, Felino has not indicated that there's any schedule concerns. I think, you know, they've done a nice job of moving forward with the project and coming up with innovative solutions to get it done on time.
One of them being between the two buildings, the concrete there, they suggested going with a higher early so we could get access to it much faster than, you know, traditional concrete floors. So instead of waiting maybe 30 days to get on it, we can be on it in about a week. So again, just trying to, how can we get this done quicker?
okay.
Would you be able to address, there is a change order on the agenda tonight for the board to approve, which they kind of got an idea it was coming. Can you explain again what that was about?
So actually, the change order includes 2 items on it. So one of the items is escalation costs related to materials. Again, you know, when Felino did this, it was more than 4 months ago. Just the market, as we kind of talked about, was, you know, asphalt prices, concrete all went up significantly. So that's part of the change order. And the other part is when this was under government review while we were bidding, they came back with some requirements for more trees, more curbing. All that's in there as well.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
And then regarding Phase 2, we actually don't have an update for that architecturally. We're in the process of those documents. We're supposed to be done the end of this month, September, and then we'll turn those drawings over to SiteLogic at that time. They will go price the drawings, and I think Shane will probably talk a little bit more about schedule with that, and I'll leave that to him.
Great, thank you. Move on to
Good.
Shane.
Any other questions from the board on this? Okay. SiteLogic? Shane?
Good evening, everyone. To start, I'll begin with the Phase 1A update. Thank you. As you guys saw, the Phase 1A area, that is the admin area. That's the area that we've completed. I'll try to keep this brief just because we've walked through that today and you all got a good glimpse of the progress and what's going on in there. But the 1A area, I'd say, is 99% complete. We're currently working on punch list, which is just, it's miscellaneous items that need completed, touched up, adjusted. In that space, as we noted, it's countertop replacement, lighting, missing lighting fixtures. That's really the bulk of it. Outside of that, it's touch-up. It's touch-up paint, touching up tile. So over the course of the next, I'd say, week or two in the evenings, we'll be knocking that out and finishing up that punch list. As far as the Phase 1B area that you walked today, again, glad you got a good visual of that progress and how that's coming together. At this point, we've gotten the structure completed, and by structure, I mean the framing, the MEP, the guts of that building, or that portion of the building are completed. We're working on drywall, ceilings, paint, and then subsequently finishes will come into play. And that's, flooring, casework. And just to give you an idea of our target completion date is October 21st for that area. At this point in time, we see no hiccups with that. That's substantial completion. So again, similar to the Phase 1A admin area, once that's completed, we'll have a punch list and, some miscellaneous items will need addressed. But the objective is for October 21st to have occupancy in that space so that it can be, used as needed. The last area that's part of this Phase 1A portion, or Phase 1 project, is the elevator. We encountered pyrite down there, which is an expansive rock material, so we've had to do some, mitigation to, contain that and seal that. So starting next week, we're going to further excavate that space, pour a mud slab in there to seal off that pyrite, and then from there, towards the latter half of next week, we'll begin pouring the actual elevator pit. From that point on, we'll start moving upward with CMU block and getting that elevator installed. The elevator is scheduled to arrive this Thursday, so we're hoping, after, I'd say 2 to 3 weeks, we'll be able to start actually putting that elevator in place. But yeah, overall, I'm glad you guys got a view of the project today. I hope you all are satisfied with the progress and how things looked. Again, October 21st is the completion date for that 1B portion. And then as far as the Phase 2 update, as Andrew said, drawings are going to be wrapped up at the end of this month. They'll come over to SiteLogic to begin the bidding process. We're targeting a November vote and review of that pricing. I believe October 17th is the...
November.
Sorry, November 17th is the date for that meeting. So that is what we're targeting, to have, a concrete, presentation and number for you all to review and ultimately vote on.
From a timing standpoint, I think you had kind of laid out a recommended strategy that, we immediately transition from Phase 1 to Phase 2. Is the timing working out so you'll be able to do that so contractors don't have to pull up, go to another job, come back?
The timing it'll be very, close transition. Initially we wanted to target November 1st to make that switch over. It's looking more like December 1st, which realistically it doesn't really hurt us as far as the schedule goes. Realistically, that gives us time to regroup and begin, planning for this next phase. I think to make that jump would have been possible. It would have been very aggressive. We do have to, move students, teachers, shift the school around a bit to make that happen, to move into the 7th grade wing and get that first portion of the 2B work flowing. So it shifted a bit, but I think it's probably for the best that it has. Again, it's not going to impact the overall schedule that we've developed and been planning for. If anything, I think it just gives us and the administration some time to shift people around and prepare for that heavy push of construction starting in December.
Okay.
So the board remember that the IMS project was a GISA project, so there aren't the change orders that you would see from the bus garage project, but that also requires the board to approve an agreement with SiteLogic for we'll call it the guaranteed maximum price of the project. So what you can expect then is by November 17th meeting, we'll have that motion to approve the Phase 2 guaranteed maximum price that we'll have from SiteLogic. So knowing the board's interest, anything advanced of that, any information or bidding results
Definitely.
that they can see prior to the motion on the 17th would be helpful.
Definitely. I'll relay that to our entire team, and over the course of October, we'll be making a heavy push to, finalize that and acquire all of the bids, button up that pricing. So over the course of that time, if there's any questions, any concerns, anything you all are interested in knowing about, just you can reach out to, the administration or SiteLogic, and we can provide that.
Thank you. There is a conversation piece will come up later in the meeting about that transition point, and I'll save that for later at the discussion part, but I did talk to Shane about it tonight, and he would have, his crew would support
Yeah.
that idea of transitioning teachers and students at around Thanksgiving.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we've got a solid plan developed for that transition.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else? Any other questions from the board? No? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for the tour tonight. That was good. Yeah.
Thanks.
So we can move on to Draw Collectives update.
Hi, everybody. Daniel is with me, and he's passing out some handouts that will follow along with what we have tonight. Once again, I'm
we have it right here.
So, since we were last here giving an update, we've had several meetings with the administrative team, working through the space planning, programming, and starting to, I'm sorry, I was muted. Starting to, really look at some of the design concepts that will, inform the look and feel of the building. We've also met with the facilities team on the HVAC, plumbing, and electrical systems to try to, really get a grasp on the high-level information that would inform those systems within our building. We've had ongoing discussions with our site civil and landscape team on the site plan. And we're beginning to schedule our meetings with the municipality to talk about the project. I think the administration has had some discussions, but we'll be having our first kind of team meetings in the next couple of weeks. And we are still on track to be wrapping up our schematic design phase at the end of the month, and we're working towards developing the imagery to present to you in one of the upcoming meetings. For tonight, really wanted to just kind of give you an overview of the site plans and the building plans. And the last time we were here, we presented kind of a hand sketch of the site and how the building would be nestled into the topography. And I mentioned at the time that the civil engineers hadn't really had a chance to look at it relative to all of the limitations on the site, the grading, the streams and wetlands and all of those kinds of things. And tonight, this drawing shows a little bit more detail. So, let's see, I'll point to the TV version back, or the projection screen version back here. So one of the things that has happened is that we've gotten clarity on the limits of the wetlands and streams. So you'll see these kind of post-shade areas down here at the bottom of the slope, and those represent the areas of identified wetlands. There is some stream area that connects them as well, and so we really want to try to stay away from those features as much as possible, because touching them or impacting them causes us a whole host of additional permitting. So they've gone and identified all the setbacks from those features, and really been working through grading to try to minimize, completely stay outside of those areas. We've really worked on trying to find the right elevation in, vertical elevation for the building to sit, so that we're at a point of roughly a balanced cut and fill. There will be a lot of earth moving on the site. We've talked about that all along, but we want to try to get as much as possible to a point where the the amount of soil that we're cutting out of the bank equates to the amount that we need to fill. So this diagram here, you'll see that there's a lot of lines on here. This is the kind of the extent of the sloping of the hills. We will have some retaining walls. We're trying to keep them as much as possible down to smaller smaller heights of those retaining walls. But we really, we have a pretty large building here. We've got a lot of site features that need to be in there. So we're trying to find the right balance between some of our retaining walls and the grading. You'll see
So
that.
on that, it looks interesting. If I'm reading these topo lines right, it looks like the road is actually 60 feet higher than where the parking lot is.
Yeah.
I always thought it went uphill.
No, you'll come in off of the King's School Road, and you'll actually come down into the site. So the building will actually be nestled down into the
Okay.
property and not looming up over the road.
Right, okay.
And so just turning, I'm sorry to put my back to you, but, so the main driveway will come down along. We're staying clear of the structures that are currently on the property along King's School Road. So we're able to really not impact those at all as part of this development. That driveway will cut the whole way across the site and ultimately connect over here at Boyer Avenue. One of the other features that in placing the building is to consider how the existing traffic works at NAMS and make sure that we can maintain that driveway that comes in up here at, I believe it's Murray, and comes down around at Boyer. So as we're looking at the building and all of these site features, we're trying to be really conscientious of the fact that the school is going to be in session while this structure is being built. So that main driveway will come the whole way across the site. We're able to get the grading to work so that this turnaround, the switchback that's there now, will be able to be maintained in a temporary way while the building's being constructed. We anticipate that some of this parking might be installed early on in the process so that it's available for NAMS, and that we will look at increasing some of the space behind the building for some temporary staff parking during construction. We talked, the circulation is very similar to what we talked about at the last meeting. You can see these purple dots represent the vehicular kind of drop-off and pickup that would occur at the front of the building. So our main entrance is here. You can see that coming in off of King's School Road. We've got queuing space that comes around to the drop-off. And then we also have the buses coming around the back with a kind of a bus drop-off and bus pickup area.
Can I stop you there?
Yes, please.
Part of this is telling parents that, buses. Sorry, Sharon. Part of this is telling parents that you can come in both entrances
Yes.
and buses can come in both entrances so we can get back out into larger, extends of this area. So I understand that, but is there going to be a bus entrance on King School also? And is there going to be a car entrance on the other end of Boyer also? They're going to have to come in both because we got to shoot them
Yeah.
out both.
So these two entry points will be used by both cars and buses.
Okay.
So buses will come in off of King's School Road and Boyer, and cars will come in off of King's School Road and Boyer. And the goal is to try to anticipate getting them off of that main drive as fast as possible.
Right, so the cars go in front and the buses go behind.
Yeah, and
Okay.
so we have the capacity here to not only queue cars where the purple dash line is, but if we felt that we needed additional queuing length, we can serpentine through these parking lots in front of the building in order to increase the stacking depth for cars, so that those cars are not slowing down the buses as they're entering.
Right.
And vice versa for buses as well. We want to have, we have a lot of capacity back here for buses to be parked along the curb and loading and unloading and not stacking back out onto the more of the intercommunicating driveways.
And by the way, that approach should be easier to manage than the high school, where you
Yes.
have kids driving and kids walking through the parking lot at the same time. You've got
that
vehicles
serpentine
dropping
is-
off.
Yeah, that serpentine was causing problems
So-
at the high school, so that.
Yeah, and
should be
what we have here is there's a fairly large parking field out here at the front, and we anticipate that only a portion of this will probably be parked for visitors and staff in the morning. We've got some staff parking that happens kind of around the building in some of these smaller lots. So a lot of this parking area will be mostly designated for events and maybe pick up in the afternoon. If parents are coming, they have the ability to park and then leave their vehicle and come up to the front entrance and get the students. So serpentining through this parking lot really won't have much conflict with other vehicular traffic because those parking spaces shouldn't really be needed for very many people.
Could,
Yep.
could you walk through that full bus path from Boyer for me, please? I'm just struggling to see exactly how they're going to proceed after the drop-off.
So we anticipate that most of the buses, as well as most of the vehicles, are probably coming in off of King School Road.
Okay.
So you can see that from King School Road, we have a small drop-off space back here. We anticipate that would be used by maybe some of the special needs buses or vans, could be right here adjacent to the side of the building. And then the rest of the buses in the morning will either come on this driveway and pull into this bus parking lot, or they will come on Boyer and then pull into this bus parking lot. And then the entire length of this bus parking lot will be able to accommodate buses in line for drop-off against the curb. So as the buses are dropping off, they're pulling up, letting the students off, and then proceeding along this driveway, clear out to this location here. So that is a change from the sketch that we had the other day. We've lengthened this driveway to get it as close as we can to King School Road to minimize the number of conflicts we'd have with cars and buses. So they would proceed down to here. If they need to go to Boyer, they would then need to come back around if they were, but I'm not sure that that's necessarily the majority of the traffic. Most of the buses will turn and come back out here onto King School Road.
Okay, so there is sufficient space then on, I guess, the far side of that drawing from off of King School that buses could make it past any possible line of cars then?
Yeah,
There's
I mean, this is
two
a
right-hand lanes
two-way traffic here,
Well,
so
there's two-way
yes.
traffic, I understand that, but will there be two right lanes? So say that, drop-off, exactly, right there.
Yeah, so at this, where the green light is right now, that's actually a two-lane traffic plus a turn lane for the parents to turn in. And so the goal would be to not let any cars stack beyond where my green light is right now.
Right, because then you have
And-
issues with the left-hand turns out of
Yes,
the King
and
School too, yeah.
all of this is prefaced on the fact that right now we're trying to build into the design a lot of flexibility and options, but we will, the district has a traffic engineer who will not only be looking at the off-site traffic, but the on-site traffic, and we'll try to anticipate how much vehicular traffic. It'll be a little bit different because this is a whole new location for a lot of parents and their behaviors might change. But one of the things that we like about this parking layout is that if we find out that we need double the capacity in terms of queuing, we do have access to this serpentining through the parking lot in order to do that. So we want to try to make sure that we're holding cars no further back than here.
Thank you
Does
very much.
that
That is
answer-
helpful, yeah. I was just struggling to see
Yeah.
exactly what the funneling would be, but that definitely makes me feel a lot better about the path, because I was initially concerned that you would only kind of like Ms. Turner was that you'd only have one for vehicles, one for buses. And obviously, we generally like buses to come in from King School because it's a shorter bus ride. So that makes a lot of sense. Thank you.
Yeah. One thing that I didn't specifically mention is then in the afternoon, for buses, what we would anticipate is that you're probably going to have buses come in groups. We have about 20 bus stalls on here. No schools that I've ever done has 100% of the buses are all there at the same time. But we have a capability of having 20 buses all parked in this method with their doors facing the school, so that however many batches of buses appear, they can do a mass dismissal, and then those buses, no students are in that zone anymore. Those buses leave. The next batch of buses come and fill those parking spaces, load, and then they can dismiss. Okay? So we talked a little bit last time. Were there any other questions on that specifically? I think just in general, you know, pretty consistent with the concept that we talked about last time, with the orientation of the services, loading dock and utilities will be kind of back in this area. We have the 2 playground spaces on either side of the building at 2 different levels. We are using the space in between the 2 wings as an outdoor learning space that would be secured from the site, so it can be used during the day really effectively. And then we're also looking at identifying a place down near this wetland that could be an extension of that outdoor learning environment. Any questions on the site?
Just the playgrounds. Are the playgrounds, have we studied the size that would accommodate this? Like, is it going to be big enough? Because
Yeah, so each of those kind of yellow areas are about 20,000 square feet. So it is, I believe that was the number on those plans. It is a fairly large area. You know, it's like more than 2 gymnasiums in terms of space. So once again, very large areas. That will be one of the next things, though, is to really identify what kinds of things will be on each playground. Because I anticipate the character of the K2 playground being different from that at the 3-5. But, you know, you could make an argument that, you know, more is better, and we definitely, you know, are going to feel like it's tight, but it's not going to be uncomfortable. It will have what it needs to have in it. I think that we have other schools of similar size with similar sized playgrounds, and they're very effective. So I do feel comfortable that they're going to be large enough. The other thing is that, you know, we do have access to green space in various locations, and we have the athletic or the PE space inside the building as well. So I'm going to say that at this high level, we feel that the area we're showing for the 2 playgrounds will be more than sufficient.
okay. Do you base it off of like a number of students per 1,000 square feet, or how do you guys figure that out?
I don't know what that equation would be. I know that we've have other schools where we have similar equipment. It really comes down to the types of equipment that you have. If it's, you know, do you want to have a basketball court out on the thing? That isn't necessarily as dense with students, a basketball court, because it's essentially like, you know, however many play a game. If you have swings, they take up quite a bit of space for the number of students. So it is more just a little bit more experience of what goes into a K2 and a 3-5 playground with the types of equipment that we typically see. But we will work with the administration to identify how much of each type of play space makes the most sense.
Do we know with the capacity for, I guess, recess, with the numbers that we have, current population, how many? What's the max amount of students at one time that would be in the K-2 playground or the 3, 4, or 5 playground? 1/6.
1/6 of the enrollment. We'll have 3 lunches.
Okay.
Recess will be after lunch, so you're taking, and you have 2 cafeteria spaces, 2 playground spaces. So
Okay. All right. Thank
Okay.
you.
So moving into the building, we've talked, I think, the last time about some kind of diagrams of how the building would be organized. And I know that you can't read some of the space labels of the individual rooms here, but to just give you a high-level organization. Oh, I'm sorry, I want to point over here. Don't want to put my back to you, but I want to go over here. So just to, this is in a similar orientation to what the site plan was oriented. The main entry location is here. We have our classroom wings down kind of to the end. This red dashed line represents the kind of that Main Street concept that we talked about. It's the organizing element that goes along from end to end of the building, and a lot of the more public spaces from a community standpoint, as well as the common spaces that the students use during the day, are organized along that Main Street. So as we come into the building here, clustered around this main entrance, over in this pink area, we have the administration, guidance, and nurse or counseling and nurse area, which would be accessed from a secure vestibule. We also have access into our large group assembly space. This would be a multi-purpose type space with the retractable seating, and so that it can be used for a variety of different functions. We also have located here off of this secure vestibule a community room, a space that the PTA can use during the day or the community can use in the evening without venturing into the rest of the building. Behind the large group instruction, we have our music classrooms. So combined with the multi-purpose room, that multi-purpose room now becomes another music instruction and ensemble type space. As we move further down here, we kind of intentionally shifted our street to kind of give a little bit of an indicator as to this private, you're entering a little bit more private space. As we come down here, we've got this kind of L shape, our two dining rooms for the cafeteria. We anticipate a K2 cafeteria space and a 3-5 cafeteria space. This lighter green area is the kitchen and serving for those two dining rooms. So each, the primaries and the kind of the intermediate have their own serving areas. So they're able to have two concurrent lunch servings happening at the same time. We've got some services back here, deliveries and stuff, kind of back of house. Also along this area, we've got the gymnasium. This is a full-size gym. So this cafeteria kind of functions as a pre-function area, a lobby for the gym. Restrooms and all those kinds of things are organized along Main Street. On the opposite side of the Main Street, we have access to our kind of learning communities, our K2 learning community and our 3-5 learning community. And then right here in between those, we have our STEAM classroom. We actually have one here and then one down at the lower level. We also have vertical circulation, so staircases, elevators are all located along this kind of spine here. As we go down into the two wings, one of the things that we've done is introduce this kind of link. We call it a bridge, but it's really a link to these two classroom wings. One, it helps with staffing to be able to more easily go back and forth between the two sides. There's a lot of shared staff collaboration, as well as some of the special needs instruction. We get more access to teachers and spaces that could be shared or kind of flip-flop between the two wings. So we end up with this more of a loop. The K2 will spend their day mostly on the left-hand side of this 3-5 to the right, and there's some transitional spaces in the middle that that could be assigned to one or the other, but could also be considered as flexible. So if there's a year where maybe third grade needs another classroom, this area in the middle could now be assigned as a third grade room instead of it being always locked into the K2 side. So it gives us a little bit more flexibility. We've got staircases on the end of both of these wings, as well as here in the center. And this will go down to the lower level, but this stair then organizes all 3 floors as well and connects it to that outdoor classroom.
Can I interrupt you, Cassie? Is there an elevator in this building on both ends?
So we currently are showing one here, and we are adding one in this location as well.
Okay, I couldn't figure out on either one of
Yeah.
the things I'm seeing where the elevator was.
So right where my green thing is the one that's actually shown in this plan, and the other one will be located right here adjacent to this stair.
No,
At
I
the
have a couple
bridge.
questions. Is one gymnasium going to be enough for 6 levels of kids?
So I'm going to go down below, and I'm going to show you another phys ed area. So in addition to the phys ed, we've got a health classroom here. Going down a level, so that was
So
our...
if I just
yeah.
had one more question on that level. So, drop off for students coming by car goes through that secure main entrance.
Mm-hmm.
What entrance will students getting dropped off by bus go through? Same entrance, or do they use something
No,
else?
so actually I'm going to go jump down because the floor we were just looking at, the main level, is the middle floor.
Okay.
This one is dropping down a level,
Okay,
and
so
so
it's there too.
at this level, you'll see that there are doors here, 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 as well as back here along the 3-story Main Street. So I anticipate that these locations will be places where students are coming in off the bus at that lower level, right into the classroom wings.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, but they will, some will have to go up 2 floors then?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Can you go back to the slide right before this one, please? How much interaction will there be between the K2 kids and the 3 through 5?
Like intentional interaction, I'm not sure yet that we've gotten to that
I'm just
point.
talking about,
Yeah.
by accident or...
So I don't anticipate a lot. Most of the kids in this wing are going to spend most of their day here. They're going to travel to specials, which would be art, STEAM,
Music, right.
gym, music. And they're going to also travel to the cafeteria and to the playground. What's a little bit hard to, all of this I know is a very small detail for what we're looking at tonight, but this Main Street and these large stairs here are very oversized. So there's a lot of extra circulation in those areas for groups of students to pass each other without there being, being jumbled up in the hallway.
Good.
But we have been working with the administration to try to be intentional about how far, like, the kindergarten has to travel to get to their specials and where it makes sense to have some of that. So, some of these things might still move around a little bit, but, this is our current thinking. At this level, we've got our 2 classroom wings again. We have another STEAM space down here, our outdoor learning, and we're actually not connecting this with enclosed space, but we're considering this a classroom space that's outside, underneath the bridge element. So it becomes a sheltered outdoor space that can be used in, somewhat inclement weather. And this entire outdoor classroom, from the main street and these STEM rooms out through this space to this covered classroom, and then even out into this area, will all be able to be designed to be accessible for the students as part of their maybe a STEM curriculum, but also just accessible for students for a teacher who might want to take a group outside.
At the bottom, is it going to be gated?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
for security? Okay.
Yep. We have this left-hand wing. Each wing is kind of progressive, so down here is kindergarten, then we go 1, 2, and then we come back down here at 3, and then 4, 5. At this level, you asked about the gym, and so this blue space over here is the other large PE space. It's not designed as a full-height basketball gym, but it's roughly the same amount of square footage, and we anticipate the character of that space being a little bit more for, floor work, yoga, dance, other kinds of movement. And so from the 2 PE spaces, we anticipate that there will be some crossover, but that this is a little bit more the character of a K2 phys ed space, and the large gym is probably more useful for the 3-5. But both of the these large PE spaces are able to be divided in half. So we actually have the ability here to have 2 spaces, and then up above 2 spaces.
What's the size of that phys ed space, roughly?
I believe it's around 6,000 to 8,000 square feet.
So is that 1 full-size basketball court, 2 full-size, give me...
Yeah, it's about the same size as a full-size gym, but
Full-size.
just doesn't have the high
The
ceiling.
height, okay.
Okay? And I can come back to any of these, but going up to the top floor, so now if we came in on the middle floor, we're going up a level. We have our wings again with this bridge element. Along the main street, we have 3 art classrooms, which is this purple color here. And we have the media center library up here. Some of the features that aren't apparent in plan are that this cafeteria space that was down below will actually be a double height space. So along Main Street here, you'll be able to look down into that cafeteria. And we anticipate some small group spaces that could be along this area as well. Another thing that isn't fully obvious is that we are taking advantage of some of the roof level that's at this floor to create an outdoor classroom that's connected to the library. So that a media center will have an outdoor space as well that would be contained at this floor level.
And when you look down to the cafeteria, is it glass from the floor all the way up, or is it railing? What are you guys thinking about?
Yeah, so we have started some 3-dimensional interior views that we aren't presenting tonight, but we're looking at, we certainly don't want to create like a mall scenario where it's like one big giant long railing the entire length of that. So it'll probably be some full height glass walls. There will probably be some areas where we want to have solid walls. And there might be places where we want a peekaboo balcony into that space. So it'll probably be a combination of those, but the ratio of them we haven't really determined yet. But very soon we'll show you some of our 3-dimensional thoughts for how that space looks.
So on the main floor, for after-school activities, like the gym or things in the LGI room, people come through that main secure entrance, or will they come through one of the other side entrances? What would be the flow then?
So the LGI, I would anticipate, would probably primarily be accessed from the main parking lot and the main entrance.
Okay.
For the gym, we have a smaller parking lot that sits out here, and we have an entrance here with a team room and like a restroom. So we're able to accommodate like small after-school activities with this parking lot and this entrance at this end.
Okay.
If you were having like a big event in the gym, I would anticipate that probably people are
main
parking
entrance.
at both ends and coming in.
Yeah. And then there'd be gates, like
Yes.
those roll-down gates or something to keep
Yes.
people out of the academic wings.
So we know for sure that we're going to have barriers or gates of some sort that block the wings at all 3 floors. In addition to that, we want to create some enclosure around the LGI and some enclosure around the gym so that those can be used without opening the whole other side of the building. We haven't worked out all of those details yet, but we want to have kind of rings of security in terms of like the areas that get accessed for community use, and then in different scenarios. So that will all be things that we're working out as the details come together.
Is there enough storage for those community groups? For example, I know PTOs, they acquire a lot of stuff over the years. Where will they manage that or store that?
Yeah. So this is one of those things, there's never enough storage, right? That is a challenge in every school, to try to find the right amount of storage because there's a price tag that comes with that storage. So we haven't really talked specifically about how much is the right fit for storage for each group, but these plans do show storage, a small storage room and a restroom with the community room. And in addition to that, we would probably have some cabinetry that could be locked with, like, here's a cabinet for this group, here's a cabinet for that group. And so that'll all get worked out in the details, but we do have quite a few storage locations throughout the building, and storage associated with the spaces that most typically have storage needs.
Okay, thank you.
Could you please go to the lower level drawing?
Yes.
So I understand the back side of that, the far side will all be kind of into the building,
Yes.
underground. How much of the right side do you anticipate? Like the back right corner, or is that
So,
about it?
Right, this last classroom will have a window.
Okay.
And there will be windows along this facade where the PE space is. So all of these spaces will have windows, outside natural lighting and views. One thing I didn't mention on this lower level, the building kind of extends beyond this wall above.
Right.
That's kind of because it's built into the hill. But this main street is actually got a couple interesting features. We are looking at incorporating a gallery for a lot of display of the student work in this area, as well as a primary reading area down here. So to try to keep some of those youngest kids from going up to the library, we are peeling off at a minimum the kindergarten and first grade, and making a reading space down here for them that's kind of more focused on like a story time and some activities, whereas then the library on the upper floor will be more some of the traditional elementary curriculum.
So we have full, full lighting for every floor then, pretty much, all the academic spaces.
You mean like
All the
outside
rooms,
lighting? Yes.
right.
Yeah, I can't think of a space, an academic space that we have that doesn't have windows.
LGI.
No, I don't have windows.
Wait, the LGI has,
Yeah. What's that? Yeah, the primary reading room is more like an open space in the hallway, and the stairwells are going to have have open, and so they'll get light, and then we'll have windows in kind of these gaps in between the spaces. So there will be natural light down in the primary reading area. But the LGI, we are looking at, right through here, we'll have some windows that will control with some blinds. But, and part of the reason for that is we're not trying to design that LGI or that multi-purpose room as an auditorium. If it's designed too much like an auditorium, then that's all it's ever going to be. You want it to be used all day long by teachers coming together and doing, group teaching. Music could be in there. It could be a
but you can
science
have,
fair.
you could have an event, like
Oh, yeah,
if you're gonna
absolutely,
have, if you're gonna have some type of play or
Yes.
some type
Yes.
of music function or,
Yes, and we'll put like motorized blinds that will black out that area for those needs.
and max seating would be,
Let me think, where were we at with the seating on this? I think we're right around 600.
Okay.
So in this diagram, on your printed sheet, you might see it a little bit better, but where my green light is more of the performance side, and this area would be more of the seating. So there's some dashed lines, but it'll all be a flat floor. So the performance area will have curtains that will pocket away, and the seating will push against the wall. So when it's not being used in that form, it's just a big, flat, empty floor. It's another space for indoor recess, or, you could have PE class, you could do whatever in there.
What type
I'm
of?
I'm
Go
sorry.
ahead, Vince.
Would there be like a modular type of stage that can be there, like to elevate students if they're performing, or if they're ground level? Is it like stadium seating? I'm trying
Yeah,
to get
it's
it.
more like a stadium seating.
Oh, okay.
So instead of having an elevated stage
They're
with
down.
like a low seating,
Okay.
we keep the floor flat and do more like, they're telescopic seating like a bleacher.
Okay.
But instead of having just benches, there are seats. And they'll push against the wall, and when you pull them out, people can sit in them.
Thank you.
But, I mean, really, it just increases the usability of that space, because now there's no obstructions like, a floor change. You can use it for all sorts of things. But this is, I mean, we're still at schematic, so, your questions are great, because it makes sure that as we detail the plan, that we're thinking about the concerns that you might have. But, I think that we're off to a good start with this plan. I think that the administration, not just superintendent, but some of the other administrators, are really seeing ways to kind of gel the new program for this building with the building. So.
One question, just regarding kindergarten, today we run a half-day kindergarten, we're not supposed to offer all day, so we have enough classrooms then?
Yes.
To offer full-day kindergarten?
Okay, my question is, right now, if you do some quick numbering and just round up between 280 and 300 per class coming in K to 2, we can't get all the parents even on one side of K to 2 into the multi-purpose room. How do we get that a little bit bigger and steal some space from somewhere, or push out the music area to ensure that we have 900 seats in there to get that parent into the multi-purpose room, so you could do a K to 2 event or a 3 to 5 event?
I
don't know how.
I don't think 900 would be enough. If you're talking K to 2, that's
Right, I mean, I'm
900 kids, that's 1,800 parents.
Right, I'm
So
just.
I mean, talking about it with the
Are there other
administration,
options?
there isn't an event that we could foresee where we would want to have everybody
I'm not
in the
looking at
auditorium.
everybody, I was looking like K to 2 and then 3 to 5
Yeah,
events.
that's,
Probably have to go to the gym.
it's still
Yeah.
600 or 700, 800 kids.
I don't think you'd have like a K through 2 play or anything like that.
Right. What type of
No.
event were
Let's do
you
it
like
for 2 weeks.
envisioning?
Please do it 3 times.
Yeah. I was just thinking 600 was like a low number compared to what.
The same numbers, 600 is at one class.
Right.
It's
All
two,
parents
two.
show up.
Yeah, well, yeah, if you include parents, it's easily 600 people. Yeah. Yeah, I think we've kind of resigned ourselves to the fact that we're not going to put an auditorium in there that could have capacity for 3 grades, let alone the entire building. There just isn't.
More looking at one of the pods.
Yeah, but you can do
Which is 3 grades.
class, you could do a grade, like a kindergarten play, first grade play.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we did talk about this, and I think that those things would still happen at one of your secondary buildings when you want to have those really large assemblies.
Thinking of a 4th and 5th grade band concert, we're going to IMS or the high school for it. That doesn't hold the capacity for it.
Holiday concert, we have to do it at the gym, I mean, is the gym gonna have?
We do not have a stage in the gym right now, so, yeah.
You also have to be concerned about parking when you're having a large event. The high school has the ample parking. Middle school's not quite as good, but they can spill down into the high school parking. So with this setup, if you had a really large space, I don't know if you'd have enough parking.
Do you have a number for that? How many parking spots you'd
Yeah,
anticipate?
I do actually. This plan that we showed tonight has 400, roughly 400 dedicated spots for just parking spots. If the buses are not in that area below, you'll gain somewhere around another 40 to 50 spots for evening or event use. And that does not include any of the flat area up at NAMS. That's just what's associated with the development that we have. So, if NAMS stays and that flat area that we're showing on that diagram as temporary parking, theoretically you could include that in the overall total, but it's not in the numbers that I just gave you.
Understood,
And
thank you.
is that going to meet the municipalities? I know we had a problem at the high school for a long time with parking to meet the municipality code. Is that going to meet code?
Yeah, so the numbers are based on the assembly space. So I think what Zeb indicated is accurate. If the building, if this assembly space gets larger, the parking requirement would also increase. Right now, what we're showing meets the ordinance requirements. Any other questions or comments?
It's Sharon. I just wanted to say that that's a fabulous job, and I'm excited about being able to consider new and different ways of doing things. To Kim's point, where we may have been used to, an all-school event, even doing an all K-2. We don't have the space for it, but considering other ways to make those things happen in different formulations. That's kind of exciting. There are a lot of different ways we can adapt ourselves to find new and better ways of bringing people together. And there's certainly a lot of space for that. It was very nice.
Thank you. Anything else?
Good, okay. No, any other questions from the board? No? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Oh, it's Sharon. I'm sorry. I just wanted to give a shout out for accessible playground equipment, particularly because, in our current structure, a lot of the students who need physically adaptable equipment are in one particular building. And in this setup, we are going to have all of our students together. So remembering to include students who use wheelchairs, students who use walkers, all of those things, which I'm sure you're going to do. And thank you.
Well, I think it's a great point. I mean, for equipment like that, I think we can actually provide better service. I love the idea of those STEM rooms, because now we don't have to have 5 of them, or we have one area that's really good. We can afford to invest and maintain, because the problem with STEM type of programs is they become old quickly because technology changes. So I mean, this is a much more economically viable way to provide, I think, a really solid STEM program at the elementary level.
Agreed. I really love the functionality of all the spaces you laid out. The questions that we had, I don't think were always easy ones to answer. But for example, LGI, I mean, it was very clear that you all had thought about every single use that we might need for that space and maximizing the space that we do have available. I'm excited to see as it progresses. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, I will just add that, at this level, we're wanting to make sure that we've accommodated all the right kinds of spaces and that they're roughly the right size and configuration. The next step for us is to have much more user engagement with first the administration, then I'm talking like school administration even, and staff, And that will then branch out into other, stakeholders, like potentially PTA and community groups. But we always want to start with the high level and making sure we have the right kinds of spaces, and then the details about, how their storage is configured, and things like that will get worked out along the way.
Sure. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
The practice field restrooms, Dr. Jansanti, were you going to walk us through that, or who was going to
I
walk
have
us
the
through?
materials
Oh, you
for the,
do?
yes,
Okay.
thank you, and Ryan's going to jump in if necessary. But
Okay.
at the board seats tonight were several different handouts. Of course, the Hayes handout was there, but underneath that was a paper-clipped document with 3 different pieces put together. The first is a summary memo that administration put together with a timeline, kind of walking the board through the deliberations and the considerations for the restroom facility over at the high school practice fields, back for when it was first requested in this calendar year, back in the late winter, early spring, all the way to as early as late as yesterday. We were going down one pathway, took a right turn, took down that alleyway sort of philosophically, and then hit a brick wall and made another left turn, and we're back to where we started with modulars. The 2 documents that are attached to it, one is a schematic and a proposal from a modular company, and the first page of the proposal, the second page has a little picture in the upper left-hand corner of what the building would look like if we went with this style construction. This would be a project that's built at a factory and then trucked here and dropped in on site and installed. It has the ability to have different facades and features added outside, the different roofs, different stonework, etc. The second option is the third attachment, which is a screenshot or a snapshot of the Millennium Park facility that was renovated last spring. And behind it are the drawings that Gateway engineers put together to get us what they put in at Millennium Park. The general look of the buildings are similar in terms of a half stone, half siding looking facade with a pitched roof, windows and doors, and then a roll top concession stand area. Both have the handicap accessibility requirements for wheelchair circulation and have storage in addition to the health department's requirements in the concession stand for health safety. The biggest difference between the two would be cost. The modular facility, including an installed and delivery and installed prices on page 2 of the document at $345,000. The Gateway engineer constructed project was estimated at $450,000. That would be built from the ground up with a contractor. The other one would be built in a factory and delivered. In terms of timing, I think we're about the same amount of time from when the board approves it and place the order to when the ribbon's cut and the doors are unlocked and it's in complete use. 6 months minimum on either way we go with it. I think Mr. McCausland's opinion was pretty clear that they both look so similar, but the $100,000 in savings is worth it because that can be better used or better saved than spent on a restroom facility that's no bigger, no better, no different than a modular facility. That first document, the modular one, is brand new. We just got it within the last 2 days, and I know Ryan had asked the company to look at some changes in terms of where the doors were placed for traffic purposes, which doors would be facing the parking lot and which doors would face the practice field. So the drawing would probably change if we go that way, but it's at a point now where we're looking for some commitment from the board as to what's your preference. And initially, we thought we were bringing a recommendation for modulars, and when the Millennium Park project came in at the price that it came in at, we thought we should look at new construction. That totally was a mistake. It took 2 months off the project to find out it was way much more expensive now. So first, questions on the two different options. And second question is this going to meet what you were expecting? And then third, is there a recommendation for us to pursue one or the other in terms of more detail, more specifics, and then get a quote to have the board approve?
Are the
Question.
number of, oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Number of bathrooms the same in both? Like the number of,
No, the one,
No.
It's actually
No.
more in the
more in the modular.
Yes.
more in the modular? Okay.
Yes.
In the modular, I know it, Millennium, and I know at the high school, we went and built cages so that people could lock their stuff and, like, soccer couldn't get into the softball stuff and softball couldn't get into. Is that available to do in this office space now, and it is something that they would do, or we would have to do at an additional cost?
That's something we'd have to do at an additional cost, but I don't think there'd be much. But that can all be segmented off, and then in that concession space, we're also looking to shrink that a little bit and gain more storage space in that concession space.
That is a lot of concession
It
space
is.
for,
To just sell prepackaged food out of it, it's a lot.
and some of it's not prepackaged.
Yes, it is. It's all prepackaged.
I'll take that up with your boosters organizations. That's my thing, that we don't cross over and there's separate locks for each entity, and just to make sure that we have enough for each entity, because when we built the storage facilities inside the dugouts up on the top softball field, you can't fit anything in there. So it needs to be ample space so that all that can get there.
And one of the things that we initially looked at, it was getting a nice, big, roomy storage space. But at the per square foot price that these things are coming back in the quotes, we can get much nicer, like, sheds from Lowe's and just put them on a concrete pad, but then putting $400 or $500 a square foot into a modular just to have a storage room. I think that's not a frugal use of the resources when we can get the same kind of storage space at a much more affordable price.
Are you okay with the modular?
I certainly am, yeah. I mean, it doesn't really make sense to pay 30% more for what sounds like the
No.
same exact return.
I had a question though. What was our original, and I realized we were way off and the construction inflation hasn't helped any, but what was our original anticipation of how much this was all going to be?
We were looking between $250,000 and $350,000, depending on the size and the finishings on the outside, the type of roof. The first quote we got was say $240,000 with just plain metal sides, flat roof.
Okay, thank you, I appreciate that. I had just lost track of what we were
It's actually
looking for.
It's actually pretty close, and I believe on the financing side, we're still looking at splitting this with the municipality.
Municipality has
And we're using
agreed.
COVID dollars.
Correct. We
There's
have-
dollars to pay for it that
We
has to be
have
spent this year.
Allegheny Health Network money for this, and we have municipality money, so the district share of the total cost would be about half.
Yeah. I guess another question, some of our facilities down by the football field are getting kind of old. Sometimes they're not always available. If we're doing things like, say, at Perky or maybe some of those other places that maybe aren't just directly adjacent to the soccer fields, would these be accessible to them, to those other locations?
Like on the
also?
weekends and stuff?
Well, if we're running events, like,
Yeah.
say, down at Perky or something, or, are these, can people get to this? Because sometimes, we've had problems with those facilities also.
Yes. Yeah. I think maybe in the long-term view, we would be talking about some more permanent facility between the stadium and Perky, but
Yeah.
for now, this would be a better option than the driving all the way to, Wendy's or something for the
Right.
bathroom.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the problem is the back entrance for the, from Perky all the way around is not accessible either. So, again, if we're going the Perky route, I'm gonna again push that we figure out a way to open the facilities on the visitor side for restrooms for Perky nights.
So we'll be back again next month with more specifics, recommendation, a quote for the board to approve, and we can then get this ordered.
Okay. Good. Any other comments on this?
Do you think perhaps at that meeting, I'm guessing, could we have like a drawing that shows where we're putting it?
Sure.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, because there are utilities already there, that shouldn't be too hard. I mean, there's all three of the utilities we need are already on site.
Okay. So there are a few items that we'll be voting on tonight before we get into the voting part of the agenda. Are there any public comments on the agenda items? Do we have any call-ins? Okay. Maybe, go ahead. By the way, I did see your post that you encourage people to come out to the, but thank you, it's, yeah.
For those that don't know, Mike Festuca, I live at 5620 across the street from what we're talking about. I like the layout of everything. I don't know if have gotten that far of figuring the logistics of King School side out, which is really my main concern. Sidewalks, I think you skipped town the last meeting, so you didn't get to hear my question for that. The sidewalks coming up.
I wasn't running away.
The sidewalks coming up King School on the far side, on that property side, they stop a little bit past Saddlebrook. On my side, there are no sidewalks. Kind of my concern is the things that I want to do at my house. If there's going to be sidewalks, if I'm going to have to wait until that is done before I do any of that, driveways, different things.
Right.
I don't know if there's been any talk of the light or four-way stop at Jasmine and the new entrance.
I think that's the traffic study that is still being
Okay.
worked on that they talked about. That's just in its infancy.
Okay, good. Because that was another concern, we're going to add, 400 and some cars at 9 in the morning? So I don't know where that would stand, and even during events, where are we going to be with that with events too? I just want to be able to get out of my house, more or less. So I'm happy to see all that, but I do like to know about the neighborhood aspect of it. How are the sidewalks? How am I going to be affected directly every day from 8:30 to 4 o'clock? So that's all I got.
Okay.
Thank you.
Cassie, are you aware of any ordinance that we would be required to put in sidewalks along King School where they don't already exist?
I'm not familiar enough to say whether that's the case. I will say that what's typically happens is if there are improvements along a municipal road, the first course would be to try to accommodate all of that on the district's property. So if there were sidewalks or, say a road needed to be widened or a turn lane needed to be put in, typically those will be accommodated on the district's property. So, all of that will certainly be studied, as you mentioned, in the traffic study as to what's required and for the traffic counts. But I wouldn't anticipate just out of the gate that it would mean anything to like across the street.
So anyway, at least getting, because we talked with Mr. Festuca, and we understand what he wants to do, and he is across the street. But if we get any more insight, instead of, can you let one of us, or
Yeah.
let Dr. J know, and he at
Yeah.
least reach out to him and say, hey, instead of waiting 2 weeks at a public meeting, here's
Yeah.
what we're told so far.
I
Is that-
think we're months probably away from that because
Yeah.
what they're going to do is do traffic counts. We will have municipal meetings
I
and
understand, just
PennDOT
if it
and-
comes in,
yeah.
that way at least we can give him some insight so he can make his plans.
Yes.
For what, because he shared with us his project.
Yes.
And it would impact him significantly all of a sudden if he did his work, and we come back and we're saying we have to put sidewalks in, even though he's across the street.
Yes. Yeah.
So, all right, so
To your
Dr. J and
point-
Sandy can,
Yeah. To your point, it does look like that there should be enough room so that if we have to put in turning lanes and an extra lane,
Yes.
that we can shift it all towards the property that we're going to have, and it's not going
Yeah.
to come onto any right-of-way on your property.
Mhm. That's correct.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
I will also add that I know there's a group at the municipality who was originally looking at how to add sidewalks near all of our elementary schools. And they have been kind of on hold, waiting for this portion to figure out what they want to do. So that might be something Dr. Walsh can discuss with Mr. Christian. I know that Blueprint Bethel Park they're working from does have a sidewalk component, and they're just kind of in a holding pattern at the moment on that.
What's a rough groundbreaking time frame? Spring? So April, May?
Later
June?
than that.
So summer?
Summer, yeah.
So, yeah, okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments, any call-ins? No? Oh, sorry, my laptop went to sleep.
That's a sign that we should be done by now.
Yeah, I know. Okay, Mr. Modrak, can you take the items we have on the facilities?
Yes, Mr. Christensen. Tonight for the Facilities Committee meeting, we have a total of 11 items. First one, amendment to the Hayes Design Group agreement, which I think we will cover with Dr. Walsh.
Right, so the board saw that last month as a discussion item. This, the board has agreed about a year ago to approach the IMS project as a lump sum rather than a percentage fee for the architect. So this amendment is the lump sum agreement for Phase 2 of the IMS project.
Okay.
Any other questions? No? Sharon? Okay, next, lease agreement with Simon Mall Properties.
Here again, this is an arrangement with the mall owners for us to park our buses there during the bus garage construction. They're over on the Macy's side of the property between Macy's and the transit garage. And this agreement establishes our right to have access to that space and for their security and cameras to police that space.
They're on.
Go ahead. Two things. Are their cameras up and working?
The cameras on, the security cameras at Macy's? Yes.
Okay, those are, yeah, because they're run by Macy's. And then if we need to extend this past the date,
That's not going to happen.
We have to be back.
We have to, yeah, because the asphalt plants shut down at Thanksgiving, so if the paving isn't done, the company can't finish the job, so they're going to be done by Thanksgiving.
okay, just because it says 11/10 on here, and Thanksgiving's like 2 weeks later. So
Yeah, we talked about Thanksgiving. I'm not sure why they put 11/10 on here.
that's why I'm asking the question
So
of,
so we're good to Thanksgiving with that cost.
By verbal, yes. I'm not sure what they,
I'm wondering if it has to do something with the Christmas holiday season.
oh, probably.
So I thought we had to actually be done by November
Thanksgiving.
1st, wasn't it? So we can do inspections on the buses? Didn't we just talk about that tonight?
So the concrete piece has to be done so the buses can get into the garage for
Okay.
inspection.
I see.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, I'm just a little concerned with that 11/10 date. Could we talk tomorrow and get an email or something to clarify that if we need to go 2 weeks later, we can?
We are completely optimistic that this is on schedule and be done by then. There's nothing that's holding us up.
Okay, next is approval of a change order for the bus garage renovation project.
We heard about that from
Yes.
Mr. Campanero a little bit of time ago. Explanation about why those two prices were added to the cost.
No questions? All right, moving on. Payment for bus garage renovation project.
It's a progress payment?
Moving on next, payment for IMS Phase 1 renovations.
And you'll note that all payments go to the Site Logic because of the GISA model. They've contracted with with all the contractors, so we pay them and they pay the contractors.
Okay, next is permission to issue a request for proposal and qualifications. You see this in regards to the new K-5 Elementary Center project.
Yes, correct. We want to start interviewing and bring to the board candidates, companies to consider for construction managers for the elementary project. Once we get through schematic design, I think the Draw Collective folks are going to want to have a team to go to for pricing.
Okay. Okay, moving on. Payment for IMS Phase 1 renovations. No questions? All right, moving on next. Payment for IMS renovation Phase 2. Okay, no questions or discussion. Next, payment for bus garage pavement project. As public knows, if they see, this is all regards to Hayes Design Group as our architect on these projects. No discussion. We'll move on to approval of proposal for radon testing.
Can I ask, do we have an estimated cost if we have to fix the problem, radiate the problem, what that would cost per building? And is it in the budget, Mr. McCausland?
No, we do not have an estimate, and no, we didn't plan for it, but we want to do the testing as a precaution.
I understand
We don't
that.
suspect there's any issues, but if they are, we'll deal with them within our budget.
Okay. I just didn't know if it was a budget item that was coming up to do this year or not.
We have a lot of general maintenance and repair costs in the budget, so we'll find a way to make it work within those numbers.
Is there
If
any?
we have anything.
Yeah, is there any concern that we do?
No.
Any
I have
knowledge?
a question.
Yes, Sharon.
I was just wondering if this was something that we're required to do? Is it something that most districts do and just we never did?
It is something.
Update or what?
It is something that most districts do as a precaution for their buildings, and we have not been able to find any record where it's ever been done at Bethel Park. So we think it's prudent to at least do the testing.
I agree. That's a little surprising. Okay, thank you for catching that.
You're welcome.
So I'd recommend we vote on these and have discussion on number 11 afterwards. So if you want to make a motion to adopt these.
Well, on that note, I'll be moving items 1 to 10 for a vote. And
Second.
Voting is open. Motion carries.
all right, on that, our last item is discussion only. Request for phased teacher moving days at IMS utilizing asynchronous remote instruction. Dr. Walsh.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Modrak. So the board heard tonight about we're approaching the end of Phase 1B, where those sixth grade classrooms, those 15 rooms plus the 2 LGI rooms, will be available for swing space so that the contractors can move into the seventh grade hallway and start working on those spaces for Phase 2. But the move will necessitate time, and we're concerned about giving where we find the time for the teachers to pack that have to move downstairs, and then unpack and set up their rooms so they can continue with instruction. It was I thought, a pretty good suggestion from the IMS faculty that they schedule 2 remote asynchronous days right around Thanksgiving so that they, the students stay home, do asynchronous work, the teachers pack, move downstairs, unpack, and the kids come back after Thanksgiving into the new spaces. Wanted to take the board's temperature, I guess, on that idea. We know that it's not the ideal scenario, but we also know that we don't have any other time built into the school calendar for these transitions. There'll be another set of transitions in April when the 7th grade rooms go back upstairs, 7th grade classes go back upstairs, and the 8th grade comes down to take over the space. But we also know that they all have Chromebooks, and we have Schoology, and that we've got experience with, doing things remotely and connecting with the teachers as needed. Good news is, for this phase, it would be about 17 teachers approximately that would be busy packing. The others could be working with their instruction and with Schoology. In April, it would be the other faculty members. It would be a totally different group. But this was a discussion item because we wanted to get your opinions. Maybe you want to talk this out with friends and family before we commit, but wanted to get a reaction to this idea so we could get Site Logic, the dates confirmed when they're going to bring the movers in to do all the heavy lifting.
I have a question about how we would handle students with disabilities. Would they be able to continue to come to school on those days?
That's a question, Sharon, that we didn't ask the administrative team, but it's a possibility. Ideally, we didn't have anybody in so that we could have the contractors moving things and teachers packing things and not worrying about getting in the way of kids moving about the building.
Right. I'm just
But
thinking
related-
if there
to
are
answer your question
students.
to answer your question more directly, the related service providers could do their work synchronously.
Right. Okay.
There aren't any in-service days or anything like that that coincide with any of these possible moves, are there? I figured no, but
So there is one November 8th, which is ahead of their readiness.
Yeah.
And then the next one would be in mid-January, which is way
Too
after
late,
their
yep.
readiness. We thought we were being really smart with the February date, but we put one into the calendar for February, but it's totally missed. Zeb, did you have something to add on that?
Yeah, I was just going to point out that February, we do have a date, but as you know, this phase two takes multiple moves. It's not just one. So this isn't a one-time deal. We may have to come back again later and review this again for a later date.
yeah, understood. I was just hoping that, any days that we could save and make synchronous would be preferable, but I'm generally in favor of the option. If there are no in-service days available, I think it's a good way to flex some time here.
What days do they have off for Thanksgiving?
Thursday, Friday, Monday.
So this is going to be what?
So when were we
Tuesday? We're talking
asynchronous?
about Tuesday,
It'd
Monday,
be-
Tuesday,
it'd be Wednesday,
Wednesday?
Tuesday.
Wednesday, okay.
So 22nd, 23rd.
I think I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
right,
I
it's
think it's a-
it's right before break.
I think it's the teacher's proposal,
It-
they're comfortable with it. They're the ones that-
We got to get it done. I mean.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
not a lot of choices, really.
Yeah.
I think that from a student standpoint, it's going to be a little exciting that they're going to come back to new classrooms, so we should have some type of an event for them.
I know this is understood, but we're only talking about IMS. We're not talking about anywhere else in the district.
Yep.
And I think we're giving families, if this gets out,
Yeah, well, once...
enough notification if they need to make changes that can happen.
Well, so at this point, we're not going to put anything out until, we'll let it simmer for a week or so, let the board talk it up with family and friends, and then by the end of next week, if we don't hear anything to the contrary, we'll presume that those days will be asynchronous remote for IMS, and then we can schedule the movers and continue scheduling the transfer and so forth. Okay. Good. Just make sure we're clear that the Site Logic and the moving is their responsibility. That's part of their contract. So it's not like we're bringing in some outside help for this.
We just have to pack.
We
and
just have to
unpack.
get the materials ready to go
Yeah, yeah,
and get them unready. Unpack.
okay.
Okay, that's all I had. Thank you.
Okay, good. Any public comments on anything besides the agenda related to the school?
When is the next regular school board meeting? I'm trying to find it.
Tuesday. committee meeting and voting meeting the following Tuesday.
So the 21st and or the 20th and the 27th. 20th and 27th.
Same time, same place. Any other public comments? Any call-ins? Any board comments?
I just want to ask where we are with the lights on the lower field and getting the key to turn them on. We have a makeup softball game that must happen on September 29th. And the Boosters organization is getting some roundabout on not the person that has the key not being able to go past a certain time, and that could impact the game. So I want to make sure that, Mr. McCausland, I know you're in the process of getting that all turned over. If we could get a copy of the key so Mr. Quinn could then turn the lights off that night. And I'm going to also tell you, we probably have another one coming up because they couldn't play any games this weekend either. So there could be a possibility that there are a couple of night games going on, and we need those lights on the lower softball field to be turned on longer than usual. So that's one.
So
Wh-
just to make sure it's clear, Doug, you know, this is the junior football thing. You get that email. We just have to take over that contract.
I'm aware of the discussion. I think Nick was working on that, and I'll be honest, I haven't followed up on that because it completely slipped my mind, but we'll get on it tomorrow. I'll talk to Ryan and we'll figure it out.
Okay.
All right,
And
I
then
mean,
the-
I have the contact
and then
person
the-
for,
If you send us the contact
I
person,
will
we'll
get you
on
all
it.
of that, but I need to make sure that the school sports happen, that the lights aren't turned out in the middle of it, because
You've got the
I will
contact
drop
information
everything
for the-
and work all day tomorrow if I have to on this project.
So you've got the contact information for the junior football person in that email I sent you. You're going to send the contact information for softball.
yes,
Just
figure it all out. He knows the contact person for
I know the
softball.
Contact for softball and junior football, so we'll get it handled.
But
Okay,
what's on timer and what's not?
that is not on a timer.
All right, and that's something we got to look into. 'cause
Correct, that's the next thing they need to do
the
is put
turf
that
field-
on.
The turf fields in the stadium are on timer. If we're taking those lights back over, there's no reason we can just put those on timer.
Correct, that they're on a timer, that they're on the, where you can adjust
Yeah.
them on your phone.
Yeah.
Which would help you greatly, because all she had to have to do is send you a text and you could turn them off.
I think we should let them make that decision because there's also the safety aspect, you know, when we're running, it's not just about practice, but when we're running, say, events in the high school and we need parking and people are going to be walking on that sidewalk. So, you know, maybe Dr. Jansanti or, you know, you guys need to take a look at how do we manage this from a safety standpoint so the lights are on, not
Agreed.
just when we're doing
Right,
practice.
that's what we're- that's what we're talking about, yeah.
But what they're having to do right now is go up to the main fixture, open a
Yeah,
key, and
that's
turn
fine.
it off.
They'll figure it out, but just make sure you consider besides practice, because I think right now we turn them on because of other events that we're running.
Okay, the other thing I've got is, where are we with trying to get the large holes that collect water on both softball fields and Perky?
The grounds guys have been working on it. They're moving dirt around to get a little bit of crown to it.
Okay, but if
They're all
the-
supposed to get laser graded, I think, in the spring. I believe, talking to the athletic director, that was on the plan to have them regraded. And then I did talk to softball about, after their practice, if there's holes, you know, rake the dirt back in. That way the water doesn't sit there.
Yeah, I'll show you a picture today where we graded it, but I think we took too much from one area because we now have a nice divot again. And then finally, are the grounds crews working on the weeds? Because there was a Pinto team that used the baseball cages at Perky, and they couldn't even sit on the bench because the weeds were growing above the bench.
We'll take a look at it. Yeah. Perky hasn't been used much lately, but now it's.
But they were
fall ball's
using,
gonna start,
yeah, and they
so-
were using the batting cages because nobody could get on field, so we were just trying to use batting cages that are available. And then, can somebody look at the batting cages on the softball field too, because they're becoming weed infested also.
Yes, we will.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other board comments? Anybody want to stay here a lot longer, or is there a motion to adjourn? All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.
Good night, everyone.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody.